Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, my name is Desiree, so welcome. And today I'm going to talk about my top 5 black podcasts to listen to. If you're anything like me who like to listen to people talk, then you should definitely listen to podcasts. I mean, it's amazing because you can listen to a podcast and just like relax. You can listen to a podcast when you're walking, when you're studying, when you're just driving. I mean, I love listening to podcasts, and I got into podcasts about 2 or 3 years ago. Today I'm going to talk about my top 5 suggested black podcasts that I really recommend that you all listen to. And so first up, the first podcast that I suggest is called The Read. The Read is a really popular podcast, and that's been around for a minute, and you probably have heard, many people have heard about The Read, especially if you're black. And so I really suggest this black podcast in particular. And it's comedy, it's pop culture, they talk about all that, and it's hilarious too. And one thing I really like about The Read is that their Kid Fury and Crystal's, their personalities are just so funny, and they're so great together. And they talk about living in New York, they talk about just like the personal life and how it relates to just like everything that goes on. And yeah, The Read is just really relatable. They're both really relatable. And so they talk about all things pop culture, and then they also kind of serve as like an on-air therapy session, because a lot of people send in letters to them asking them for advice and counseling and like all this stuff. And they're heavily on promoting going to counseling and getting help, online therapy sessions and all that stuff. So that's one thing I really like about them. They're always about mental health, so I really appreciate that. And it's a great podcast, especially if you want to laugh. Like, you need to listen to The Read. Second up is called The Friendzone, and The Friendzone is another black podcast that I just, there's 3 hosts for this podcast. And the first host is Hey Friend Hey, the second is Dustin Ross, I believe that's his last name, and the third is Asante. And they're all friends, and they all talk about, and this podcast is really mainly about mental health, mental wellness, mental hygiene. They talk about just about all about mental health. And it's just a really great podcast if you one is funny, it's a funny podcast, but 2, the dynamic between all 3 of them are just really cute and hilarious. And yeah, the podcast is centered around mental health, and each week they have different topics that they talk about, that and so each week is different. And so some weeks they talk about things that are just like out the blue, or but that is really funny. And even if you just want to listen to a podcast with like 3 friends that are just super chill, then I highly recommend The Friendzone. It's so funny, I love them. I actually last year in December went with my friend. I took my friend because she didn't listen to them, and we went to go see The Friendzone live. It's basically like a podcast but live in San Francisco, and it was amazing. Like, I've been listening to The Friendzone for a long time, and so just to see them.
As always, we love you guys so much. We thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Stay back and protect your magic.
Just experience a podcast live was really interesting and different. So I highly recommend The Friendzone because this is one of my favorite podcasts. And look, I ain't gonna lie to y'all, like, this, it's funny, it's hilarious, and you're not doing nothing. We're in quarantine, and so if you have nothing better to do, you should listen to a podcast. Just saying. So third up, my third podcast that I recommend is Getting Grown. I love listening to Getting Grown. Like, oh my goodness, Getting Grown is, if you are a black woman, and if you are looking for a black woman podcast in particular, then you need to listen or subscribe to Getting Grown. Getting Grown is really it's for black women, And the two co-hosts of this podcast their names are Jade and Kia. And Jade and Kia are best friends, and every week they come together and they talk about adulting and how ghetto it is. I mean, raise your hand if you feel like adulting is ghetto. Adulting is ghetto. Actually, adulting in the quarantine is the ghetto. I'm just saying, it really is. But anyway, so, and they talk about life as being a 30-year-old, and you know, just being 30, being a black woman, and just trying an adult and trying to keep your mental health intact. I mean, like, I can relate. I mean, I'm only 24, but I feel like when you adulting is hard, and when you're just trying to figure it out, it's relatable. So yeah, I love Getting Grown, and I actually saw Getting Grown 2 live. Also, I saw them along with the Friendzone in December. So Getting Grown was like their opening act, and then the Friendzone came second. Yeah, I love Getting Grown, and I actually told, when my friend went with me to the Getting Grown or the Friendzone live podcast, she really enjoyed the Getting Grown podcast live, like their set. And so I was like, see girl, I told you. And so yeah, if you are a black girl, black woman, and if you are looking for a podcast particularly for us, then you need to subscribe to Getting Grown. And fourth, I think this is my fourth. This is my fourth. 1, 2, 3. It is. My fourth podcast that I recommend is called Food Heaven. And Food Heaven the Food Heaven podcast, that's what it's called, the Food Heaven podcast. And this particular podcast the two hosts are BFFs, and their name is Wendy Lopez and Jessica Jones. Had to make sure to get it right. Best friends and dietitians. And the Food Heaven podcast basically centers around like diets and healthy eating, and it really is about health and nutrition. And so they talk about different health and nutrition topics, and just different things, especially like food, especially like what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat. And so they just talk about different health topics each week. So I really like them. I learn a lot from them, and they're both black women. Both of them, I think one of them live in Richmond, California, or in the Bay Area, and the other one lives in New York. But yeah, they're both dietitians, and they're both black women, and I really love that they give their insight, and I just feel like I learn a lot from those two. So I really suggest the Food Heaven podcast, especially if you're into health and wellness, and you know, eating healthier or better, I guess you can say. And then finally, my fifth podcast that I suggest you listen to is Therapy for Black Girls. I really love Therapy for Black Girls, and the host of this, I had to make sure I get her name right, is Joy Harden Bradford, and she has a PhD. She has a PhD, and she's a certified clinical therapist. And so she is she's a black woman. And each week she talks about different topics, and especially like how, for example, building a coping kit, or how to deal with anxiety. And she's a really great source for just black women. And I just love listening to her podcast. I have learned a lot. And if you're anything like me, who is anxious, who overthink things, and if you're just anxious, overthink things, and deal with even depression, then I really suggest Therapy for Black Girls, because she really tackles all those different things and topics and subjects, and about mental health, and what do mental health mean in the black community. And so I really love Therapy for Black Girls. And I know, and all the podcasts that I mentioned in this video, you can find them you can find them on Spotify, and sometimes I think you can find some of them on SoundCloud. I highly suggest that you listen to these podcasts on Spotify because it's just easier access. And then on Spotify they have like a tab for like podcasts, and you can just kind of scroll down and look at all the different podcasts that Spotify offers, and you know. So I highly suggest that you listen to these podcasts that I mentioned in this video. I mean, we're in quarantine, so why not give podcasts a try? And you can find all these Black podcasts again on Spotify, so subscribe to them, give them a listen, and let me know what you think of them. If you like this video and you like what I recommended, then please give me a like on the video. Comment down below if you checked out the podcasts that I listened to and if you like them. So just comment and tell me what you think of these podcasts if you gave them a listen. And also, you know, I'm new to this whole YouTube thing, and if you like this video and if you like my channel, then are you want to support my channel? I mean, this is only my second video, but if you want to support me in building my YouTube channel, then I suggest you go ahead and subscribe. I don't suggest, no, you need to do it. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so you are notified when I'm posting a video every week. That's my goal. That's my goal. Every week is the post. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful, and again, thanks for watching, and bye.